name is Omar Bantayan, and I don't know how I ended up in the middle of this table. Good morning. I am an organizer and a representative of the National Nurses United. And I've been in the labor movement for, I guess, 26 years.
Okay, yeah, for my introduction, I wanted to say that the quote that got me into this, power concedes nothing without demands. And so I really feel like that, wow, that's really a true statement. He was a former slave. Lamont Taylor was just refreshing my memory. And so he had to get into rooms, like, and it made me think of Sylvia Campos, where you're the only one. They don't want you there. Like, you're the only one. And so you have to take that power. And so that's the way I felt throughout my working career. Like, I saw employees being taken advantage of because they didn't have a union, a power, a group of people to also make those same demands that they needed. And so when I was able to become an employee of the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, here in Corpus, I felt like it was home. Because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of the activism that I didn't even know that had a name. So I'm 8 years into it, but really a lifetime of knowing that my family has always tried to fight for justice. And that's what I saw in my roots that I know.
And Omar, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got involved?
Sure. That was a lifetime ago. A couple of times a lifetime. How I got involved was 26 years ago. It was, my first 13 years was in the labor movement, and I see really beautiful people from the labor movement. I was 21 years old and in the Philippines. My father was assassinated when I was 10, and he was doing the same. And at 21 years old, I started organizing in the unions. And at 23 years old, I became the very young face of the labor movement, becoming the Secretary General of the May 1st movement in my town, in southern Philippines. I went on to become the face of that movement for a decade, and then I migrated to the United States, where I started to work as a policy writer for the International Labor Rights Forum in Washington, D.C. And then a couple of months later, I was hired by the National Nurses United, the California Nurses Association. One of my comrades are here, Julie Rogers, the beautiful Julie Rogers. And I worked with her my first campaign in McAllen, Texas, and now I'm making it full circle in this part of the country. And I've never left it. And it's a privilege to organize with the nurses, the most trusted profession in the country, and being able to be part of their other than organizing efforts, but our advocacy for Medicare for all, our advocacy for climate, our fight for climate justice, and so on and so forth. And it's been a life in the labor movement and the service of the working class.
One of the organizers at Texas Campaign for the Environment. It is a little bit different for me to be here today because most of my organizing work is revolved around environmental justice. And the thing that separates me from these two other great panelists here is that I'm very, very new to labor organizing. When I first started at Texas Campaign for the Environment, they were in the early stages of forming their union. So when I started, they had already begun that process of signing the contract or hammering out the details of their contract. So it was very, very jarring for me to watch that process come from the ground up, having to meticulously go through every item on the contract, from healthcare to wages to time off, and we really went back and forth on a lot of those issues. And it was very, very annoying because there were things like we were fighting over dollars in our wages, and I just remember being so angry about that because I was like, yeah, I know you have the money, come on. And so most of my organizing has been around the environment. I began getting involved around 2017 when I was still in high school. I don't know how much y'all remember this, but during 2017, one of the biggest topics that was in the news at the time was gun control and school shootings and mass shootings. And as somebody who was going to school every day, I felt like that was really affecting me because I was really scared. I would have nightmares about it, of going to school and then dying through gunfire. And so that was one of the things that really got me involved at the time. From there, I started getting involved with the Nueces County Democratic Party, helping them organize their poll workers, and from there, I got more involved with canvassing, vote making, things like that. And in about 2020, when the world started burning, I began to become much more radicalized, reading a lot more like socialist literature, socialist theory, and with the major protests that were going on at that time, it felt useless to focus all of my efforts into purely just electoral work, because we had Democratic leadership and it was not taking us anywhere. So in 2022, I had gotten involved with the local city council elections, specifically the runoffs for Sylvia, shout out to Sylvia, and Jim Klein. And I would, just to share a small anecdote, I had gotten started just shortly after the runoff was announced, and we were down by a couple hundred votes for Sylvia's race, and I went out there canvassing practically every day until the runoff election, and we had flipped those numbers. We had started winning, and we had won by about the same margin that we were losing by. And I remember that was just so amazing because so many of the times I was going to the door to talk to people, and they were saying that they didn't know that the runoff election was coming up. Or they were saying that they had voted for Sylvia's opponent previously because he was first on the ballot and they didn't really know the difference, so they just clicked one and moved on. And so then winning that election by about the same margin, I got to see, oh my God, the work that I did actually mattered. It actually made a difference. And that was what just inspired me to get even more involved and go full-time at TCE, and which I'm so happy to do now. So again, just to talk about the key takeaways we'd like you to have from this panel, we'd like you to understand workplace democracy, the importance of unions, and how you can use your union to organize around or beyond the bread and butter issues of just your conditions. So, Letty and Omar, I guess I would like to open the floor to you for a little bit. If you would like to talk a little bit about the state of unions right now in the U.S. with the recent changes to the NLRB, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. In 1983, the unionized section of the working class in the United States was 23%. In 2023, the unionized workers went down to 11%. And in 2024, it went down to 9%. So there is a concerted effort by the powers that be, not just by Republicans, by the powers that be in this country to stifle organizing. Why? Because workers, the very salient part of the working class struggle is that we confront capital in the face, right? We confront them in the face, and we can shut down industries if need be. And that's not just talking about the past 10 years. We're talking about more than 100 years of struggles, right? They have learned, Capital has learned its lesson from the Pullman strikes over in Chicago. It has learned that if the workers come together, the workers can bring down not just the economy, but their pockets, the bottom line of capital. Right now, I'm not so sure, don't quote me on this, there is a ruling that you can file an unfair labor practice, and maybe our labor people can correct me on this one. In Louisiana and in Texas, and this came from SpaceX. So, the right wing of this country, and I would say capital, the oligarchs of this country, are really like looking into stifling union rights and union efforts. Right? We may have some differences with Joe Biden and so on and so forth, but I will give it to the man. He was able to give us some elbow room in the National Labor Relations Board so we can organize easier. But the past couple of years, the likes of Elon Musk and his ilk has been able to manipulate the courts, manipulate the board to make it harder for organizers to organize unions. Because organized labor is not just an appendage of the Democratic Party. Organized labor is a detachment of the working class in its confrontation against the likes of Elon Musk, the likes of, the capitalist class. So there is a downtrend in the number of organized labor, but that doesn't mean that there is a downtrend in the resistance. Maybe we can talk more about that one, and that's the more exciting part.
Thank you, Omar. And now I'd like to talk about what our union's foundational values are, our principles, how we came to adopt those, and maybe also talk about a time that our unions have had an issue that goes beyond our workplace, and how we organize around it.
Those public schools, principals don't care about unions, so they're not going to say, hey, come to a training so you can get better organized. But the national and then our Texas state office in Austin does do that. So they asked us to go to a 2-year, it was called Leadership Development Program, and that's where we came up with our values here in Corpus Christi. And we came up with, we were able to go to our schools in the Nueces County area and show them the values that we came up with. I can read them real quick. Oh, I won't read all of them. But respect, community, students, workers' rights, patience, peace, compassion, fairness, trust, unity. It just goes on and on. And it was something that you think, oh, how is that going to be important? Well, recently, Dr. Vedder, our president, was able to help an employee who was actually, the principal was telling her to break her values in order to get rid of a teacher, and it was a planned, organized administrative move. And because we had the values to back her up, we were able to, it became a big issue of values. So the principal didn't have the values, but the union did. And so you can see that, in making it a bigger picture, any of your workplaces, like Starbucks and all that they know they need to organize, things like that can come up. Their values can come up. They go against their bosses. So I think that's a super thing that a union can do. And then, what was the second question?
Do you want to talk about a time that your union organized around something outside?
Okay, and I'm going to have to say that Becky Muller was involved in this. I know because it was with, we have the Coastal Bend Labor Council, which involves the unions in the area, the IBEW, which is electrical unions, the base has a union. I know I'm going to leave out some other ones, but yeah, communication workers, and I think that's. Yes, so anybody can become a union. And so, that question, so the time that I remember is when the last 2 years ago, the legislative people where they meet in Austin, the Capitol, they were trying to push through a bill that was going to take away the students in public schools, K through 12, learning about Cesar Chavez and his movement, learning about Martin Luther King Jr., taking that all out of the public school students, so they wouldn't know anything about that, making slavery something that wasn't that important, that wasn't that bad. Barbara Jordan was being taken out. I don't know if I leave anything out, but I know Dr. Nancy Veda found out about it at our AFT union, called Becky Muller, Coastal Bend Labor Council, Christy Bide probably. You know, we all as a coalition got together because they meet once a month, and so they were able to come together. The context that we have with the community leaders helped because Dr. Veda called Cecilia Akers, who is Hector P. Garcia's daughter. And so she was able to get together people. She called Todd Hunter, who represents us, and so he, with the pressure from all, it wasn't because he wanted to, what did I say? Power concedes nothing without demands. It was a demand by a bunch of people who are part of unions and not part of unions. They're just friendly to our allies, right? And so it's got squashed, and that was 2 years ago. Of course, right now they're going to be in session. They're already in session, January 14th. I was already up there meeting with all of them, telling them what our demands are again from our state perspective. They already put together booklets the union did for us, and so I went to each of their offices and told them, you have to go by the Texas Constitution, which says every student has to go to public schools, and you have to give the money for that. So we're up there fighting for our union members. I think that's...
In the past 20 years, there are 3 basic principles which have guided our organizing and collective bargaining work. One is that we believe in a publicly funded healthcare system, which is now dubbed as Medicare for All. It has had so many iterations, like universal healthcare and so on and so forth. We believe in, that's number 1. Second is we also believe that the interests of our patients, ourselves, the union, the nurses, and our communities will always contradict that of capitals, corporations, at all times. There will never be a time that our community's interest will be the interest of SPAWN or Corpus Christi Medical Center. It will always lock horns. That's number 2. Number 3, we believe that our interests, our membership's interests, the nurses, and the interests of our patients and our communities will always be in solidarity with each other. Meaning, if our nurses are well rested, there will be a significant positive effect to the welfare of our patients and our communities. Having said that, while we believe in the scheme of things, our union is but small compared to others. We're about 285,000 from all over the United States, from New York all the way to California. But we believe that our nuts and bolts organizing and collective bargaining work will build us power on the shop floor so we can pursue our dreams of a better society with the guidance of our North Star of those 3 basic principles that we have. So we continue on organizing all over the country. We were just able to organize UMC New Orleans. We were able to organize Seaton in Ascension Seaton in Austin. We also have bargaining units in El Paso. We were able to organize in past 3 years in Coral Gables in Florida. We were able to organize, in the middle of COVID, we were able to organize in Asheville, North Carolina. 1,600 nurses are part of that HCA division of the union. HCA is the richest, biggest, dirtiest healthcare corporation in the history, not only of the United States, but of the world. And HCA owns Bay Area Medical Center in Doctors Regional on Alameda. And we're fighting them all the time. So we organize and organize and organize to pursue, our dreams of a better social order. And to that point, we are in the forefront of calling for a single-payer healthcare system by expanding Medicare for all, right? And I love Sylvia's here, and Isabel, and Julie. We've been in the trenches together, and it's always nice to be with you again in the trenches. So we have been pushing Medicare for all in so many ways, on the shop floor, in the hospitals, by coalescing in solidarity with other groups in Texas and California, in wherever we are, because that's how we are taught, right? Like, flourish wherever you're planted. And I think we're flourishing, even if we have a cloud in the White House right now. So I think we're all flourishing, right? So we also do that with our legislative efforts. We have an office in Silver Spring in Washington, D.C., where we try to talk to some of the, some kind of friendly politicians, but we do have a strong relationship with Bernie Sanders, who has co-authored or has a version of Medicare for All, and Congressperson Jayapal, and so many others who have pushed that, who are pushing the agenda for healthcare for all. Other than that, we have also been really advancing our efforts on the issues of climate change and climate justice, environmental justice. We have built a foundation which we call the RN Response Network, when we send people to man-made disasters. Well, disasters are always man-made, right? This program has started when Katrina happened in New Orleans, and retired nurse who was part of the retired division of the union started a clinic to bring over people needing health care from New Orleans over to Houston. And then when Haiti happened, we also sent nurses there. When 10,000 Filipinos died during Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, I think we sent about 50 nurses across the Pacific to help out in that part. But don't get me wrong, this is not just a humanitarian part of the union. This is really trying to showcase while we can deliver health care and we have health professionals, and the real gem of our union is our membership, but it exposes the disasters that are happening in the environment because of unplanned production by capital, and this is what we're seeing, and we're continuing to advocate for this. Last but not the least, there are so many in the list. 2 years ago, I think the Texas legislature has come up with, I'm not so sure, an act, a bill, or an executive order from the governor's office to criminalize healthcare professionals who help facilitate gender-affirming care. Am I right about that? So we condemned it, and we made it as part of our monitoring that we represent our membership, but over and above representing our members, it's really condemning this inhuman act, but we are making sure that if ever that happens, we will fight that to the teeth. We are going to fight that. When we made it sure, we told the hospitals, we will fight this. But over and above that, on the level of communications and propaganda, we're making sure that our voice is heard, and it's heard loud, and we will fight this.
Thank you, Omar. I would like to talk a little bit about one of the issues that my union, Texas Environmental Workers Union, also tackled outside of just the workplace conditions. So last year we had made an effort to pressure our organization to release a statement in solidarity with the Palestinian people. We felt that that was very necessary and in a unique way for our environmental organization. Because one of the city of Corpus Christi's biggest, I guess we'll call it inspirations for how they want to go proceed with the process of desalination was by leading from example from the desalination plant in Israel. And one of the things we know is that because of the blockades from Israel to the Palestinian people, people in Palestine do not have access to clean drinking water, at least not in the same way that we do. And so we were able to recognize the way that those two issues are connected. We, as Corpus Christians, we have had our own issues with water scarcity and polluted water, obviously not in the same exact way, but we can see ourselves in those people. And one of the things that we know is that until Palestinian liberation has been achieved, global liberation cannot be achieved. And we envision a world free of fossil fuels and free of environmental discrimination. So we have pressured our organization to release a statement in solidarity with the Palestinian people, to which we were met with a big fat no. And that was really, really tough. But also we were able to, from there, pressure our organization into complying with the BDS list. So one of the things we've done was we replaced all of our HP printers with different brand printers that was not on the BDS list. And we are going to continue to make it apparent that Palestinian liberation is very intertwined with environmental discrimination, environmental racism, and we will continue to push that forward. Even though this is not something that our union would want to handle as an issue that directly affects us. This is not something that has to do with our wages or has to do with our PTO or whatever. This is still something that affects us. It's still something that's very intertwined with the work that we do. And so we were able to, as a union, stand in solidarity together with Palestinian people and pressure our organization to comply with the BDS list, which I'm very happy. There's many members of the Texas Environmental Workers Union in this room right now. Can I get y'all to raise your hands, maybe? Yeah! What's up? So, I guess we can move into closing statements right now before we open the floor to questions from the audience. So, Omar, can we start with you?
Closing statement. Well, the question is, why do we have to move? Why do unions have to move out of their comfort zones of just organizing and collective bargaining and being quote and unquote service to their membership? Well, this is not just about the unions. It is about the working class. And the working class is not, some kind of a very abstract kind of concept. You know why the things that we're talking about, why should the working class be one Medicare for all? Because Medicare for all will confront capital and capitalism itself in the eye and say, we don't want this. We don't want oligarchs lording over and making money out of the patients. Right? Second, why should we be advancing women's rights? Just because women are our ally? No. Women are us. Majority of the women of this country is working class. Majority of the women of this country is not just Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton. Majority of our women are in the workplace. Why should we advance the struggles of our comrades in the LGBTQ sector? Because they're workers. It's not just about intersectionality. This is us. This is ours. And we take care of us. We take care of ours. And I know this is a closing. I want to thank Becky. I want to thank Isabel. I want to thank Sylvia. I want to thank Julie. I want to thank all of you, because when we needed you, you were there for us. And thank you so much for being there. I want to thank Jenny and Chloe.
In closing, I wanted to encourage those of you who are workers and don't feel like you're getting any power to make changes that are good for your workplace, to go into the AFL-CIO website, and there it says how to form a union, gives you the history of it, and it was really women that pushed unions to grow because they were being just subdued to where fires were actually killing them up in New York and trying to make clothes and things. So if you look into that history, it was women who were being oppressed, back in the 1910s or something, I don't know. And also know that our union is strong right now, AFG here in Corpus, but it started in 1975, I believe, 6. And so it was only 17 teachers. It was 17 teachers who saw that their students on the poorer side of town were just getting old textbooks from the other side of town who discarded them. And that's what they were teaching their kids with. They saw there was no air conditioning in the South Texas heat. They saw such oppression and horrible workplace situations that impact their students that they found the union under AFL-CIO and said, we're going to start this here. And so they did. And in Corpus Christi, we actually pushed through a state law that actually gave teachers a 30-minute lunch break on their own, which they didn't have in the 70s. I don't know if you remember, but they used to have to eat with us. So that came from Corpus Christi, among other things that I'm sure Becky can tell us what other things have come out of the union. But it's not the union, it's y'all. It's people that come together in the workplace and not administration with these great ideas. It's us, because we work there. We work, there in the trenches with the kids.
So, to close off, what I would like to say is to emphasize the importance of working class solidarity. I'm going to connect again to the work that I do. We've done a lot of work in Gregory, Portland, Ingleside, talking to folks about the various industrial plants that surround that area. One of the biggest roadblocks that we run into when we're talking to folks out there is a lot of those people are working engineer. And if they're not working engineer, their husbands work engineer, their brothers work engineer, their sons work engineer. And it's a very, very common issue. And so working class issues such as the public safety concerns that we face from the pollution at some of these certain plants, those are really hard to tackle. And as working class people ourselves, everyone in this room, we have to understand that just because somebody is working for an industry that might be inherently evil. That does not take away from the fact that that individual who is working for that industry has their own needs that need to be met. They have families to feed. They have to keep their power on, and we have to understand, as a community, the importance of standing in solidarity with the people that are heavily affected by these dangerous and toxic industries, and make a collective effort to attack those industries at the top, and not in a way that demonizes anybody that works for any of these particular industries, but demonizes